Hey, real estate rock stars. It's Sarah Denick from Indiana. And today I had the pleasure of interviewing Emily Terrell from Texas. She is a mom. She is a Tom Ferry coach. She gives us so many goodies today about leveraging AI and coming up with prompts and systems so you can save time in your business and really get organized and start running your business like a business. There are so many good actionable items that you can use to just level up. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this one. Hey, real estate rock stars. It's Sarah Denick from Indiana. And today I have a treat for you. Emily Terrell is visiting us out of San Antonio, Texas. And we are so excited for this one. She is a Tom Ferry coach. She is an AI expert. She is a team leader, boss lady, mom, jack of all trades. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, of course. So I did gonna slip into your Instagram before we got on the call today. And it's so cool to see you and Tom Ferry up there on stage and really changing a realtor's life. I myself am in the Tom Ferry network, so it's cool to meet you. And I think what's so important for especially newbie agents is you don't know what you don't know. And I think that we all need a mentor or a coach or somebody who kind of sees the bigger picture and can kind of keep us on track. So tell us kind of about your journey in real estate, how you got into coaching, all the things.
Um, yeah, so I've been a real estate agent for about a decade now, and after I had my second child, I was successful. I was really successful as far as like coming out of it, and I worked really hard. But I when I had my second child, I got hit with the mom guilt, and it was the guilt of I wanted to make money for my family because I couldn't not make money, but I also then felt guilty that I was making money and not spending time with my child. So I needed to start figuring out a way that I could do both. So I kind of got really good at systems, right? Of figuring out how to create long-term lead generation so that I didn't have to be a slave to the phone and a slave to talking to people. I created systems to do that for me. So because of that, once I got really great at them, right? Creating great experiences, interacting with clients. My natural next path was honestly just to become a coach. And so about 3 years ago, I started the journey to become a coach. I chose to work with the Tom Ferry Network because I had already been with it for almost my entire career as far as like that organization. But it allowed me to build a team in which I run my team, but I don't have to be on top of my team all of the time. So, I mean, for example, yesterday I had a closing that I think I made one phone call for. Right now, my expertise actually got us to close, but it was able to create a closing in which somebody called me about 2 months ago. They wanted me to list their house. I got it to my team, and the rest was handled. And we got all the way to closing, and I didn't have to do a ton of work. So it was, just kind of through the use of building systems and using tools and technology in order to make my life easier so that I could spend more time with my family. So now, when my whole family, husband, child, and now second child, and myself got the flu, it wasn't as stressful as it could have been.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I think that is such a relatable story. And it's really hard because you want to be here now and you want to be 100% with what you're doing. But when you're at home, you're like, man, should I be working? When you're at work, you're like, oh, I should be with kids. And especially like, on the buyer's agent side, so many people want to see houses when it's the weekend and at like dinner time. And it's trying to figure out that balance of how do I leverage my time, but also show up for everybody. So I think that we all deal with that, and and systems really is the way to go. I know for us, one thing that has really been great is we have somebody in our brokerage who isn't on a team. She's solo agent, and all she does is show houses for people, and she's very good at it. Like in her spare time, she loves open houses. So you can call her and she will go show open doors for $35. She'll attend closings for you. And she's really savvy. She's also like the girl you call who's like, will you look at my pricing? Like, what do you think about this? So I think if you could find somebody like that, Or that could even be your niche if you're starting as an agent, I think that's a brilliant way to, like, open doors and learn how to talk to people.
Yep. For me, it started, when the big journey towards it and the big change was when my mom got sick. She died a couple years ago, and I ended up being her primary caretaker. And so I couldn't go show houses. I honestly couldn't leave her. She needed 24/7 care at that point when, by the time we found out she was sick. So I needed other people. So I reached out to agents that had shown for me in the past. And I essentially negotiated at the time for buyers, I negotiated referrals. And that was really helpful for me. And then eventually it morphed into more, them being on my team. But at the time, it's what I needed, right? I had a massive hole to fill, which included showings. Now the great thing is I had the conversation with buyers because a lot of times they were repeat buyers, they were investors, they were people that trusted me and wanted to work with me. So I would explain to them and set the stage that it may not be me opening the door for them, and that was okay. I don't have to be the one that physically opens the door. What they want me for is the negotiation. What they want me for is the experience of buying the house. What they want me for is my knowledge. But my knowledge doesn't need to be available for me to physically just open a door. And so it worked out, right? It worked out of me being able to hand off a lead for someone else to show for me. Now, instead of choosing several different people, I chose a very few people because I had trained them how to show houses, and I wanted them to show them my way so that my clients had the best experience. So it really worked out, and it was very helpful because I was able to spend, into my mom's life, I was able to spend the absolute most amount of time with her as I could.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really hard going through the seasons of life and how, things change and trying to incorporate this business in those negative times that really do happen. And I think that's a really good point because I think that when people start to become a team leader, one of the biggest issues is that handoff, that they just want you. And there are ways to get savvy and leverage your time. And exactly. So train the people exactly how you want it to be done. And I don't know what that looks like. Are you telling them, look at the closest comps before you go in, or like what advice are you giving them? Or
Yeah. So actually, what's funny is that a coaching client and I, his name is Jason, we actually went over this yesterday because he's in the process of getting buyer's agents. Um, and so it's a two part, right? So whenever you start training an agent to be a showing agent, right? The very first thing that we did is he and I came up, and we actually used AI to do this. We used this process of AI. But the very first thing that we did is we came up with essentially an operating procedure, right? We came up with a list of exactly what somebody needs to do to prepare for a showing, everything that they need. For example, I'm in Texas, so we go and print off the previous listing or the listing, actually the active listing. If there's any documents associated with the listing, such as seller's disclosures or the lot and block surveys or anything that they need or have, to go ahead and print all of that off. From there, you're going to go ahead and assuming again this is that you have the time, you're going to go and run comps to make sure that the house is priced appropriately according to the market, at least on a cursory level, right? You're going to go see what else is available. This way, if the clients go into that one house and they like it, great. If they don't like it, what else is there available in that neighborhood that you could see right then, right? And then having any pre-questions. Then the second thing after doing some of that research is understanding what the clients want and making sure that we are prepared to ask them questions. So in his case, he's actually preparing a sheet that his showing agents take with him to every showing that just give a general list of questions that they can ask. For example, going to your clients and saying, hey, the three most important things you wanted in a house were A, B, and C. Let's rate 1 through 10 if this house meets that criteria. And we may not hit, 10 on everything. So after we go ahead and prepare that showing, it's then the basic rules he's going over with every single one of his showing agents. It's, how early should you arrive at appointments? Well, they should arrive at least 10 minutes early so that they can go in and prepare the house, right? What we don't want is we don't want a showing agent to show up and go, oh, I'm here. Let me fumble with the lock, right? That's so embarrassing when you're an agent, you're fumbling with the lock. And I understand it happens, but if we can and we have the time to be prepared, we should be, right? Being at the house early so that even an extension of us, even a showing agent, somebody that represents me, is prepared. And then, what's the worst thing was an agent goes into a house and you're showing a house for the first time and your client goes, what's in here? And you're like, I don't know. Let's find out, right? Because you've never been in the house before. But if you're there 10 minutes early, you can go in and you can show up ahead of time. And if there's anything of the house that may be a little bit unusual or that you need to prepare your clients for, you're not having your first reaction at it. You actually have that time.
Like, let
And
me
then,
prepare you for this.
yeah, this isn't what we thought it was going to be, right? Or
Want my
this is next
quarantine
door,
baby everywhere.
right? But you can prepare yourself because it's about setting expectations. If somebody knows if they have an expectation set, then they usually handle it a little bit better, right? They're prepared for it. They're actually prepared for it to be worse than they thought. So they handle it better, right? But and then he is actually, so not only are we preparing for research ahead of time, preparation right for before the appointment, but then also, and of course, questions that you answer during the appointment, but then also what that showing agent's responsibility is after the appointment, right? How they should provide feedback to that listing agent, specifically how they should provide feedback to me, or in his case, him, so that he understands not only what the client wants to, is saying, but also that the showing agents what they think the reaction of the client is. This way, everybody's getting feedback for that property. And then it also allows yourself as the agent to call your clients, because remember, you're their point of contact, and have more information of what they thought of the house, have more information about the house, any likes, dislikes, or problems that the showing agent might have, right? So setting up this process. Now, of course, again, all of this is based on a perfect scenario, and it may or may not happen, right? But at least that showing agent can go in and be more confident, more comfortable showing a house how you want them to show it.
Yeah, that's really good. One of the things that I have started implementing too in my business is when I have a new buyer, we do a buyer's consultation and I usually do it with them, go through my whole presentation. I always like to walk them through the MLS because I think we assume that people can read the sheet, but really specify and show them, hey, this is how big the lot is. This is where you see how many garage, spaces there are. And just kind of walk them through. And I have found that bringing that buyer's agent or showing agent into that Zoom is a good way to one, knock out two birds with one stone because I'm kind of teaching them and kind of interactive. And they're also able to build a little bit of rapport with that client and kind of get to know their personality before they start showing them. So, yeah, the whole thing, the buyer's agent it's a process.
Well, it also matters on how you introduce someone, right? My assistant is not called my assistant. She's my partner. And it's done on purpose because somebody doesn't usually want to deal with your assistant. They want to deal with you. However, they're more than happy to talk to your partner. They are more than happy to have a conversation with your partner than they are to just talk to your assistant. And so it works out. And I also let them know, like, how it works, and that if they do, for whatever reason, ask her a question, that's okay. If they text her instead of me, because that information is still coming to me. So depending on the person who works for you and how you introduce them can set the tone for the relationship that they have and how much trust your clients have with them as well. And for me, that's really important. But that's also the reason why I stick to a very specific person instead of just using anybody that's available, which I can, but I try to stick to a specific person and build my team in that way.
We have somebody who, here locally in Indiana invented this app, and it's called, Showing Time, and basically, it's like the Uber for showing, so you can put it out there and they pick it up, and I love the concept, and used to use it all the time, but I did find, like, who shows that house is a huge reflection on you, and you want to extend that professionalism, so it sounds like you're pretty hands-on still with the buyer's agent. How do you decide, like, on the split? So if this is your client and you're handing them off and you're still it sounds like are you still part of the negotiation and
Well, so it depends, right? So there's a difference between a showing agent, obviously, and a buyer's agent, right? It So keep in mind, like my business is not set up to work buyers for the most part. I mean, I would say 90% of the business that we do is listings, right? We are set up lead generation and everything. We're set up with listings. So realistically, like buyers aren't as big of a deal as far as figuring out the splits. When it comes to listings, it really depends. right? So for example, the closing that I just said I had yesterday, right? My role in it was to answer one initial phone call where I said, hey, I'm going to have my partner come out. She's going to meet with you guys. Even though they were a personal referral, I still, introduced my partner. My partner then managed the entire process, including getting the listing agreement signed, not negotiating, coordinating all of repairs because the house needed some repairs ahead of time, coordinating, getting, everything set up in the listing, negotiating the contract and everything. My role in it in the entirety was one phone call at the end of the transaction, and it really was to clear up some title work. Right? That was my entire role in it. So in that case, she gets 50% of the transaction because she did all the work. Now,
Mhm.
she didn't have to lead generate, but she did all of the work. If I'm doing a showing agent, most of the time what I recommend to my clients is to do one of two things, right? If they're just a showing agent, it's pay them per door,
Mhm.
and then depending on how many times they show, possibly at a closing, if they showed, maybe throwing them a bonus,
Mhm.
right? The other option, now the positive of doing something like that is the showing agent gets paid right away. They get paid for the job and the service they provided at that time. Now, the other option is to just pay a percentage of the closing. Now, the negative of that is that the showing agent doesn't get paid. They're dependent on if you do your job, which,
Mhm.
a showing agent may or may not choose that choice. But however, they could get potentially paid a little bit more. The positives for you is you're not paying out right away, but you are paying more at the end. So there's some positives and negatives. Most of my agents, most showing agents that I've worked with in the past, and most agents that I coach, they end up choosing to pay just per door that somebody shows. And in this way, the showing agent gets paid no matter what, even if they didn't close on a house. Like even if that client didn't specifically close on a house, it allows them to do it. And then if they do a great job and they're showing and it leads to, somebody closing, I usually will encourage them to throw a little bit of a bonus when something closes.
Yeah, I think that the beauty of it is there's so many ways that you can do it, and it's a situational based, and just like no deal is the same. There's options in this business, and leverage is really the key. So that's super cool. So I want to hear about your coaching. So as you know, we have a lot of new agents who are on the fence with, do I pay for the coaching? Do I listen to podcasts? Do I do all of it? What are you seeing like some of the big issues that new agents have? Because we know that, 10% of us need the majority of the business. Like, what are you seeing is the big hang up?
The number one problem that people have, right? And it doesn't matter if you're new, if you're a seasoned, right? Every single agent has a lead generation and lead follow-up problem. Right? That is the problem. And most of the time, actually, they don't even have a lead generation problem. They can get leads, right? You can buy leads, you can do all this. It's not that. Everybody has a lead follow-up problem. Learning how to get organized enough to follow up long term. I mean, just as an example, yesterday I'm working with one of my clients. She's been in the business for 8 years, and we are going through and meticulously setting up her. She's specifically using Follow Up Boss, but that's what we're working on is long term follow up, setting up Follow Up Boss to its long term. Because imagine this, right? Imagine getting up in the morning, and let's say you're a brand new agent, you've been in the business for like 6 months and you've done open houses. So now you have all these open house leads, right? Imagine getting up in the morning, and I'm going to use Follow Up Boss as an example just because it's on my mind, right? Any CRM will work, but I'm just going to talk about Follow Up Boss. But imagine getting up and you wake up in the morning and you go to Follow Up Boss and you're like, okay, great. Here are the tasks that I need to complete, right? I need to mail this out. I need to send these 5 text messages, and these emails need to go out. Perfect. Okay, great. And then you go to your next list, and Follow Boss have they're what's called smart lists. And it's like, okay, these are the specific open house leads that I need to follow up with today. I need to call today. And once you clear out those lists, you're done with your follow up for that day for your open house leads. Right. And so imagine applying that methodology to all of the lead sources to where you don't have to guess who to call. Because that's the problem, right? Most agents, they're ready, they're motivated, they're sit down and they're like, who do I call? Right? They don't know. You're at your desk, you're prepared, you got your phone, you have no fear, you're ready to get on the phone, but you don't know who to call.
Yeah.
So setting up your CRM from the beginning of setting it up to tell you what tasks you need to create and what people you need to call in those specific days is important. The problem is that most agents don't. Did you actually know that only 32% of agents identified a CRM as a tool that they should use? And then of those 32% of agents, right, only 32% of agents have said they should use it. Like I don't remember the percentage, but it's really low that actually do. And then the ones that use it at a high level, it's insanely crazy. It's how low it is. But CRMs are like the number one thing that brokerages provide to their agents. Almost every brokerage out there, especially the bigger ones, provide a free CRM. And there's no reason why we can't use it.
Yeah.
But the problem is that, and the reason a lot of my clients come to me is for things like that, right? They come to me because they're like, I don't know how to set up a CRM. So we sit down and we just go through the rules, right?
Mm.
Like this is how you set up a client. This is how you set them up on an action plan. This is how you put them into a smart list to figure out who to call. And then you go in and you have them, they just go through the rules every day. You learn how to prioritize your leads that way
Mhm.
just by sitting down. So that's the main difference between listening to a podcast and having coaching, right? Podcasts tell
Lot.
you it tells you what you should do.
Mhm.
Tell it Podcasts, they're like, you should get a CRM. You should follow up with your leads. Coaching shows you how. It
Yeah.
breaks down the steps into smaller steps that you can do. I
I
don't
think
just tell my
accountability is
clients,
a huge piece as well. Like you have to, you're scheduled for that call. You're going to get on that call, and you don't want to get to that call and say you did nothing.
yep, my clients don't do that.
Do you hear a ton of
I'm
excuses, or do you feel like most people, when they get to coaching, they're like ready to go?
There are a lot of people that make excuses. My personal clients don't, mainly because they know that Emily's really nice and I smile a lot, but I'm also a little bit of an a-hole. so,
That's
so they don't. They shame themselves, I promise you. But it does happen. A lot of times people get into coaching, they expect it to be this magic pill, and it's not, right? It's a tool, it's a guide, it's someone to help you kind of sift through the things I've tried that didn't work. And then granted, some of the things that I tried that didn't work for me are going to work for you, but kind of sift through, guide, help, break things down for you. But at the end of the day, you've got to be the one that does the work. And so it's being coachable. If you're going to get into coaching, which I absolutely 1000% think that everybody should be in some form of coaching, they should be coachable and just be open minded and ready to know. I mean, you pay a coach for a reason, right? You pay someone to for a reason. So just try this stuff out. If it doesn't work, that's fine. But at least try it. At least be open minded to doing it.
Do you know a star when you see one? Like, do you know, like, in the first, like, half hour, if this person's gonna, like, crush it?
About 5 minutes. 5 minutes takes me.
What are those qualities?
It's really a mindset,
Mhm.
right? Somebody doesn't ask me, well, they don't say to me, Emily, well, what are you going to coach me? Why are you here? Why are you special? They don't come to me and they say that. They go, hey, I need specific help with this. This is what I'm bad at. Please help me. Or I don't know what to do with for this. Can you help? It's coming through with like not with a scarcity mindset. I guess that's a good way to put it, right? They're not coming in going, well, why should I do this? It's nope, I'm ready. And
Yeah.
it's very different, right? And keep in mind, like being a star is different for everybody, right? I have agents that are absolutely crushing it at $28 million a year in volume, right? Which is insane. That's an insane amount.
Mm.
Crazy thing is I actually talked to her before this call, and she was like, "I don't think I'm doing that great." And
Where
I'm
are
like,
critics?
"Exactly, right?" And I'm like, "Girlfriend,
We're crushing it.
stop." Yeah, you do more in a month than a lot of agents do in a year. Come on, right?
Mhm.
And so it's different for everybody, but realistically, like it's a mindset. And I could tell so quickly based on just even getting on a phone call with somebody or them messaging me on Instagram,
Mm.
right? I can tell their mindset and how it is. And them, pushing and hitting their goals is how, and I wouldn't even say aggressive, but it's just how they start a process, how open-minded and how willing they are to do the work.
Mhm. Do you feel like most of those people who are crushing it really are focused not just on business, but really have more of a holistic view? That they're the people who get up early and work out and eat right. Do you like see a correlation with that?
Actually, for a lot of them, yeah, because it's all the same thing, right? Like, let's just use your example of getting up early and working out, right? It's a drive,
Mhm.
right? It's understanding that, for me, it's like I work out almost every day, right? It's not about discipline. Oh, I'm so disciplined. No,
Mhm.
I just made it a habit, right? I picked something that was a priority for me. I lost like in the last 2 years, I lost like 60 pounds, right? Well, that
Wow.
became a priority for me. Oh yeah, just go back and look farther on my Instagram, you'll see. But that became a priority for me. So in order to work out, I needed to pick, or I needed to understand that it was a priority. So I adjusted my work schedule. I hired someone that could pick up or could drive my kids to school
Mm.
because while she's driving them to school every morning, I was then able to go and work out. And it became a priority for me. And I don't have to pay this person a ton of money to go and take them, but it's so helpful for me because I could use that time to go lift weights at the gym.
Mhm.
It's actually a perfect time because there's not that many people there. And so I just made it a priority. So if health and wellness and getting up early is a priority for you, then you just have to make it a priority in your life. Like not use the excuses. I knew that every time when I worked out, the later it took in the day for me to work out, the less likely I was to do it. So I
Mhm.
just did it first. I ate the frog, right? Same thing with like lead follow up. Like calling people most of the time, it's the worst, it's the last thing that people want to do. So make it a priority. When you
Mhm.
sit down, do that. Do that before you go do the fun things. Do that before you start doing social media. Just make the things that you need to do that are going to be the most impactful a priority in your life. And that's kind of how a lot of my clients are when we organize their day. We put the things they don't want to do first.
Mhm. I think that's really smart. And because, having that abundant mindset is everything. And thinking bigger, getting stuff out of the way so you can really focus on, living your best life because get the workout done. Because I totally agree. If I do not do the things and I put it off, I just dread it. And then I come up with a reason why. And I just, you get busy and time gets away from you.
Yep, 100%. I mean, and that happens for everybody,
Mhm.
right? And you know what? Working out in the morning may not be your best option. I had a client, Nadine, that works out at 10 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
That's when it's ideal for her to work out. I mean, I could not do that, but go
Mhm.
her, right? But she works out every day.
Yeah.
She works out every day because it's at 10 o'clock at night. That's when that's most beneficial for her. And that's perfectly fine.
Mhm.
But she said it's a priority. So that's a priority for her is to be actually she does it in her garage, but she at her elliptical at 10 p.m. at night.
Mhm. So the systems, I love the CRM. You got to have a CRM. That's where all your dollars are. It's in your CRM. I agree with that. What are some other systems that new agents should put into place right away to set them up for success?
Okay, so my one of my favorite things to actually talk to my clients about also is what's called a master marketing calendar. It's the idea that you need to plan all of your marketing, but it's not just the marketing, right? It's also the work associated with the marketing. So I'm going to use just some easy examples so that we have an idea. One of my clients, Jenny, she is the queen of pop buys. And when I say pop buys, I mean high quality gifts, right? She not sends out, she drives up to people's houses. She gives them about 9 high quality gifts a year.
Wow.
And it ends up getting her, I think last year, I think she's at like, I think by August of last year, she'd already made $225,000 in GCI from nine, and she hadn't even done all 9 high quality gifts, right? It's insane. It's a ton of money. For every dollar she spends doing the high quality gift, she makes 79 times return. But
Wow.
not the point. Let's love Jenny. Okay. But that's not the point. So for a master marketing calendar, what we started doing with her, and this is just the first layer, she took all 9 of those gifts she planned to do for the year and put them on a calendar. And then she worked backwards. So, for example, if she was going to give a Valentine's Day gift, right? She put the Valentine's Day gift on the calendar. Then, she wanted them delivered on the 13th. So then she put that in there. She said delivery on the 13th. Then on the 12th, she needed to confirm that they were all completed. Then on the 10th, they packed all the bags. So then on the 8th, they purchased all the items. Then on the 6th, she's going to go through and just verify the entire list that she's using. Because if it was just says Valentine's Day bags, never fails. On the 13th, she's going to be running to the grocery store trying to buy stuff to put all this together last minute at 10 o'clock at night. So when she put in all the work in that calendar, it allows her to actually see and plan what she's needing to do. So instead of, stressing out at the end, she was able to actually like spread the work out for everything that she needed to do. It allowed her to just plan her time better. But now what's really important about it is Jenny has an assistant. So do you think Jenny's having to go do all this? No. Do
Mhm.
you think the assistant just goes, "Hey, Jenny, can we just look at this is the list we put together that I know we should have. Can we just review this just to make sure you're good?" So Jenny spends 2 minutes just reviewing the list. She's good. Then
Mhm.
her assistant goes and buys the items. Then her assistant goes through and also puts the items together. And then Jenny and her assistant go and send everything out, right? And the assistant actually goes in and texts everybody and says, "Hey, I have a little gift for you. I'm going to stop by at this time. Is that okay?" And if they're not home, she'll leave it at the door, right? So all of this work is done. And it gives Jenny a couple of things. Number one, it allows her to see what she needs to do.
Mhm.
She's not just running it all in her head. It's on paper. She sees what she needs to do. It helps her plan her time. And then number two, it actually helps her use her assistant. Instead of her trying to figure out every day what her assistant needs to do, her assistant runs the marketing calendar. So she can do that. Now imagine that, right? Now, what else should you have in there, right? You should also have the social media that's associated with this specific program. So now Jenny goes in and she makes sure to film when they're putting the bags together. She
Mhm.
can film herself dropping the bags off. And then when the text messages and pictures show back up of like kids liking the candy or, parents, enjoying coffee together in a new coffee mug or whatever the item is, right? She can then take all of that content and use it on social media to show how she's engaging with her clients, right? And create more FOMO for
Mhm.
these items, right? So I call it the corresponding social media content that needs to go with that specific layer. Now imagine taking that one layer of pop buys and doing the same thing for events
Mhm.
and then planning all the work for your newsletters and then planning, maybe you do buyers seminars, right? And then maybe planning work for expireds if you're working those and just so on. And so now all your lead generation pillars have all the marketing planned for the whole year. And it's in one place. If you have a VA or an assistant, they can look at it and do the work that's on it. And you're also not forgetting about the social media so that, because if we do the work, we got to show people that we do the work, right? So this way you don't forget. This way you're not sitting there going, "Oh crap, I forgot to film myself putting all these baskets together." Or "I forgot to film myself at this open house. I forgot to film myself doing all these things." Now it tells you to do it, so you do it. And either yourself or your assistant does it. And if you don't have an assistant, but you have this whole plan comes in, do you think it'd be easy to hire somebody and say, "This is your job"? Absolutely. It makes long term creating like systems like that easier and it helps you run your business better just because you have a plan.
Yeah, if you didn't put it on social media and real estate, it didn't happen.
Yeah, doesn't count, right? Doesn't count. My workout this morning didn't count because I didn't put it on social, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's so funny. I love that. I love the pop buys. I love another level of leveraging everything that you're doing. And I think that people really get in paralysis analysis about how to come up with content. And it's just the stuff that you're doing every day. So yes, record it. You don't, even if you don't post it, just record it so you have something.
You
Because I
never know when you're going to use it.
stories, you have to have things keep going. You need to have something constantly for people to see because it's such a free touch. Uh, so impactful, and it's so funny because when you see people out and like, "Man, you're crushing it. You're a hustler." And they love that. So, what percentage of your GCI or net are you recommending people spend on marketing dollars? Do you have a set number?
I mean, the general rule of thumb is 30%, but but it's different than that, right?
Mhm.
Um, I heard a speaker the other day, and he said that agents have this, and I'm going to call it a nasty habit because it is kind of a bad habit. Agents have a habit of spending too much money on things that don't work and
Mm,
not enough money on things that do.
mhm,
So when you're looking at like what percentage of or trying to keep track or budget money to save for marketing, right? I mean, try to save at least 30% in the beginning. However, if you're tracking the money that you're spending on certain items, then you'll be able to know in budget. So, for example, Jenny, right?
mhm,
The numbers that I use, I think she so far, and again, these are older numbers. She had spent so far in the year when we ran those numbers in August, she had spent $2,500 on marketing, but she had at that point made 200, or not marketing, so sorry, pop buys. And she had at that point made $225,000 in GCI from it. Well, that's way less than 30%,
Hmm.
right? Right now, she's at a 79 times return. So, like that specific does not follow the rule of thumb of 30%. So, what she did to do that is she understood, she tracked how much time she spent on it. She tracked how much money, the hard costs, plus, she has an assistant. So, how much she pays her assistant per hour she's working on it is, tracked in there. And then she tracked how much money she made from it. And that allowed her to understand how much she needs to put aside for that specific lead source each year. And then she just applied that to every single one of her lead sources going forward so that she understood and got an actual idea of how much money she needs to save for marketing. So while 30% is a good rule of thumb, you really should understand and start tracking your specific numbers so that you have a better idea of what you need to do.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I don't think most people track and reflect enough as they should. Is there any tools that you're recommending tracking? I mean, are you having people track each deal, how much they're putting in, what they're getting from it, what worked? Like, how are you coaching?
Yeah. So the easiest tool and the best one that I recommend is called Realty Zam. REALTYZAM, which if you guys want a coupon code, uh, send me a message on Instagram and I can send you a $10 off coupon code for it. But Realty Zam allows you to upload daily everything you spend. So, like for example, I'll upload my credit card to it because I have a credit card specifically for real estate. I
Mhm.
upload my banking information again because it's specific for real estate. I then keep track of all of the income that I made. And the cool thing is I can track things on there like days on market and like when I started working with the buyer versus when I went under contract. I
Mhm.
can look at the amount that I listed that property for versus what it actually went under contract for. I can keep track of everything when I get paid. When I get paid, my broker splits out of there any fees that I have to pay, any referral fees, anything like that. All of that's tracked in there. So I can see it tracks all that information. But also, I can also track like specifically where that lead came from
Mhm.
because then I can start associating some of the expenses. I can associate some of the expenses with specific listings. So, for example, my professional photography, I can attach it to a listing, and closing gifts, I can attach it to a listing. Anything like, let's say I sent out mailers for just listed postcards, I can attach that expense per listing.
Mhm.
This way, I know on average how much it costs me to run a listing, how much on average it costs me to have a buyer. This way I know exactly what I'm spending. And then when I'm tracking my expenses, I know that like you could do categories. So like let's say you assign everything as far as, advertising. But you can do subcategories. So you can say, okay, these expenses while they're, marketing or advertising, they're for expireds. Then these expenses, these are for, marketing and advertising, but this is everything I spend for open houses. So this way you're keeping track of very specifically what you're spending money on, not only just in general, but also like very specifically by lead source, by everything that you're doing. So you have a much better idea. And it's super user friendly too. It's geared directly towards real estate agents. So you can keep track of everything you're doing. And then at the end of it, you can actually download a, a report and send it to your CPA for all of that stuff. So it's super easy. So like I have investment properties. I keep I'll put the expenses investments, but then I'll track it by property.
Mhm.
This way I know exactly which properties cost me what money instead of just investments. So it makes it so much easier for my taxes at the end of the year.
And then you can reflect back on those deals and see what went well, and then double down on whatever that was.
Yeah. I mean, like for example, if you let's do Zillow, right? Just as an example. One of my clients, she was spending a lot. She was spending about 40 grand a year on Zillow,
Wow.
right? Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Um, And so we went through and I had her go through and I was like, look, you need to, get better on target with what you're actually making from Zillow. She only made $50,000 from Zillow. That's
Right.
not a, that's, that's a worse return. That's a horrible return. I mean, that's almost a loss, right? Now, so we went through and we're like, look, you're spending so much money for almost no return here, but
Right.
you're spending like this much on realtor.com leads and you're getting so much more. So we were able to identify where she should spend her money. So since then, her business has become way more profitable because she was able to get rid of Zillow and switch over to Realtor.com. Now, I'm not saying get rid of Zillow. I'm just saying in her specific case, that's what we did to make her business more profitable. And so
Mhm.
we're able to see, like, is something actually worth the money that you're putting into it? And she was easy. I mean, it was super easy to tell. All we did was just track her expenses and track her income.
Yeah, brilliant. And it seems like a no-brainer, but, it's surprising because 'cause you're not reflecting, you know?
Yeah. Well, most agents don't, right? Most agents don't. They don't set their business up for success. So they don't know what they're spending. They have
Mm.
no idea. They don't keep track of it. They don't look at it. They don't even know what money they make.
Are you recommending people do a profit and loss monthly?
Well, if you are working with RealtyZam, I recommend, and any program you're using, you should do this. But my clients go in once a week. Same thing with myself, and allocate all the expenses. So when you're doing that, you can take a look and see where you're at. And within that program, it's super easy to just look at it. So you don't have to run new reports and do everything. You can literally just look right there. And as long as you're keeping track of your expenses, which they're auto transferred in, you just have to go and put them in the right places, then
Mhm.
it's really easy to do.
Yeah. I think that is important. I've reflected back on money that I've spent on marketing specifically, and, I was spending like $1,500 a month to be on the back page of this magazine, and I'm like, "I don't think I got one thing back from 2 years."
Yeah.
But
And
I
that
would be
happens.
we make pens with our name or all over it branding, and when we go to a restaurant, we hand the waitress, "Here's 10 pens," and they love it, and it's constant. I get pictures all the time from friends at restaurants sending me that picture, or
Yeah.
my husband's a lender, and we will make, at our neighborhood, restaurant coasters with both
Hmm.
our info on each side, and every time that bartender gives somebody a drink, they put it on our face, and they send us a picture. So those little silly things cost a lot less, but we're seeing,
More of a return.
more of an ROI all day long. So I think it's just finding what you're good at, what your niche is, and where your people are at, because a lot of times your clients spend a lot of the time at the same places as you, and really doubling down on that. So yesterday I ordered 5 dozen golf balls that were branded to me because I know I spend a lot of time golfing in the summer, so I can give them a golf ball.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, any idea can be great,
Hmm.
right? But it's just keeping track of it, keeping track of what you spent, where deals come from, and when you keep track of where income comes from, don't just say SOI, because not all SOI is the same, right? Not your sphere of influence is not the same. Where like a parent from my kid's Brazilian Jiu Jitsu class is not the same thing as somebody I used to go to high school with, right? Those
Hmm.
are two completely different lead sources, even though they're both my sphere of influence.
Hmm.
So being a little bit more specific of where your deals specifically come from is helpful.
Yeah. I got a really great spreadsheet from my Tom Ferry coach, and it is so great on tracking numbers and knowing where your business is coming from. And it just puts it all together. So I can constantly look at that and know where I'm getting business. And I love a good visual reminder. I have a board in my office that has all my sales because I just like to constantly look at the number. For me, that's motivating, and I'm like, "Oh, we're already into the year. How much? Like, I need to pick it up." And for me, that's how I push myself. But I think you have to find what that is and what motivates you, and really double.
Oh yeah, 100%, right? You have to figure out what works for you. I'm big on leveraging. I like technology and stuff like that. So it's helpful. But whatever works for you, whatever way you're going to track, just
Mhm.
make it happen, right? Doing it done is better than perfect. So just make sure we are keeping track of stuff as you're going through.
Yeah. Let's get into that technology. And I know you are a big AI gal. Tell me about how you've incorporated that in your business and how you've used that to leverage sales.
How have I not? Okay, so and we kind of talked about this beforehand, but what's funny is that when I talk about AI, people don't realize that a lot of real estate agents are actually already using it. But the
Mhm.
problem is they're not using it in the right way, right? So what I like to say is that the biggest problem with AI is not AI, right? It's you. It's our limitations of what we remember to use it for.
You're the problem.
So
It's you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I always, what's funny is when I tell people that I always sing that. I always sing Taylor Swift songs. I'm like, sing it with me now. But it really is. It's our limitations, right? And so and the biggest limitation actually that I'm seeing every single time is how to write a prompt, right? So it's how to write a prompt. And if anybody listening to this podcast, it's anything from it, well, I hope it's a lot of things. But if you've made it this far, like getting a prompt and learning how to write a prompt is mega important because we need to understand, the best way to ask a question. And I do this exercise with people with a lot of my coaching clients, and I teach them how to write prompts and how to actually go through it. Because there's all this information out there. People ask me all the time, and they're like, Emily, what are your top 5 prompts? And I'm like, I don't have top 5. I have one. I have one way of building a prompt. I don't have 5. I have one. And they're like, but that is, I'm like, no, it's just one. So what I'll do, and I'll explain this, and if you guys want more explanation, then reach out to me. But
Mhm.
what I did is I first went to ChatGPT, and you could there are lots of other platforms. I'm going to say ChatGPT because that's where I went. I went to ChatGPT and I asked it, and I said, hey, I need to write a really great prompt. What are the elements or what makes up a great prompt? And so it actually gave me the elements, and it gave me some like tips of writing a great prompt. And I said, okay, but like, what are the actual like breakdown elements? What things should I have in every single prompt? And so it gave me 9 elements that make up really great prompt, right? The purpose, context, examples, and so on and so forth, right? I don't remember all 9 of them. And I said, okay, great. So that's where I started, right? I just got a thread going that gave me the elements of an effective prompt. Okay. So now within that same thread, you ask it to write you a prompt. So your first step in AI shouldn't be like, hey, I need help creating a long-term open house follow-up plan. That's not what it should be. Your first step into AI is in that one thread, that effective prompt writing elements thread. You should say, using the framework above, help me write a prompt so I can create a long-term open house follow-up plan for my real estate leads. I want it to be a follow-up plan that lasts at least 12 months. I want it to include calls, text messages, phone numbers. I want scripts to be included for the text messages and phone numbers, and I want all the emails written out for me. In addition, I want a corresponding social media content that I can send directly to these clients to re-engage with them. Make sure you use the framework above. And then I hit go. Now, what AI is going to do is it's going to write that prompt. And it's not giving you the plan, it's giving you the prompt. And it's
Mhm.
going to take this much content and make it into this. It's going to make it into this beautifully well written, no way I could sit down and ever write this prompt. And the beauty of it is it does things like, for example, it's going to tell it, some of the prompts that have been written for me say things like, while I'm asking you to give, great marketing tools, think outside of what I've asked you. If there's any suggestions, please include them, right? So it's saying it's the prompt is telling AI like, look, I don't know what I don't know. So
Mhm.
think, you're all knowing, so give me more, right? Give me more than what I've just asked you. And then there's another one where it gives you constraints, right? It'll tell you don't be vague, be specific. Give me things that are actually going to work. But when I'm sitting down to write a prompt, I can't. I have ADHD. There's no way I could sit down and actually think about all this stuff. And then,
Mhm.
so what my clients and myself and what we're able to do is take that nice, beautiful prompt, put it into a new thread, and get exactly what we're looking for. So it gives you to the T. So for example, one of my clients the other day, she took 52 extremely vague social media content ideas, 52 of them. And we did this process where we got, ChatGPT to write a prompt for us. And then we took that 52-person list and we put that prompt in there. And what the prompt did is now every day she can go in and ask for the next one because it does it one at a time. And it gives a more, because her ideas for social media were things like how to sell a home in middle Georgia. Very vague,
Mhm.
basic topics. But now what it does is it gives a more specific topic for her to talk about, an outline for a 6 to 10 minute YouTube video, the captions that go on YouTube, captions that go on Instagram, captions that go on, all the different Facebook, TikTok, all the different platforms, plus specific lines that she should use within there to call out so she can make clips that can then go on all the platforms. Then it actually gives instructions for her to create hyper realistic images on Dolly. It gives her an outline for a long form content blog, and it gives her the content to put on Google Business or Google Business profile to bring it all back to her long form content blog. So all of that from one prompt. And this whole process took us about 3 minutes, right? Mainly because I walked her through the whole process of how to do it, right? But if she were to do this again, it would probably take her about 45 seconds to write the prompt and stick it into a new thread. So now her marketing person just goes in once a week and says, give me the next one. And so now the next one of her 52 ideas. So now every single week for an entire year, she can get all of that content set up for every single week for an entire year. And she doesn't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Mhm. That's so cool. I have honestly never thought about AI to create systems or prompts as you're saying, but
Yeah,
that's brilliant. And to sit down and come up with that level of detail, like I also have ADHD and I would already be on to the next thing. So
right.
I think that AI is really changing the game, changing life. And what I hear you constantly saying is leverage, leverage, leverage. So I think it's brilliant how you have learned to leverage time, your business, all the things so you can show up to what's most important to you.
Well, you think about it this way, right? Uh, Poor people think in terms of money, rich people think in terms of time.
Hmm.
I wanted to be rich. So I thought about how could I multiply my time,
Hmm. Let's get rich.
right? I mean, honestly, like that's the way to, and what I've learned is that I've exponentially grown as far as like income and wealth because I leverage other people, I leverage technology to give myself more time. And
Hmm.
not only like rich as far as money, but like I get to spend an obscene amount of time with my children,
Hmm.
right? I get to spend time on the weekends with my kids. Like my kids this weekend want to go to a skate park. So we're going to go, well, find one, but we're going to go do that because I can, because I have time. And, if I was working constantly, I wouldn't have time to do that stuff. I
Hmm.
got for the last 2 days, I've gotten to pick my kids up from school, like in the pickup line, which took time, but I got to do it and I got to spend more time with my kids because I was there picking them up from school. And it was something that I wanted to do. I get to go have lunch with my son today in an hour at school
Yeah.
because I have time.
I think that's really important because as real estate agents, we are not 9 to 5.
Hmm.
We have 7 days a week, 24 hours, and you can work constantly, but I think it takes a long time to figure out the balance
Hmm.
and to figure out what's the highest and best use of your time, what's gonna get you the biggest return. And unfortunately, you have to fumble your way through and learn those lessons to get to, achieve that. But I think things like this and talking to people like you really help people put that into perspective. And if you could learn it earlier, it's gonna save you a lot of headache and time in the future.
Yeah. No, and one thing to understand is don't mistake like me doing work. I work incredibly hard,
Mhm,
right? I work constantly,
mm,
but I've just learned to work smarter.
mhm.
I've learned how to like when and where I'm going to do stuff. I mean, even yesterday, my kid's teacher was like, "Oh, hey, would you come and help volunteer?" And I said, "Doing what?" And she just looked at me. She goes, "Oh, you're smart." And I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Because you didn't just say yes. You asked doing what?" She goes, "I would have just said yes." And I was like, "Well, right, of course, because it kind of, I don't mind helping, and I'm actually going to help, but it kind of also depends on what I got to do,
You know what I'm getting
right?"
into here.
Yeah, I want to know what I'm getting into. Whereas I don't just say yes, or I don't blindly say yes. Now, of course, I am. I have to go scoop ice cream, but which it's fine. I don't
Yeah.
get to, I because of coaching and stuff, I don't always get to go do those things. So I'm excited that I can.
Mhm.
But I still stopped and asked, and I just worked. I worked smarter. She was just impressed that I stopped and asked what it was before just blindly saying yes to something. And I'm like, of course, of course.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this has been amazing. Where can our listeners find you if they want to reach out and get that $10 off coupon code or ask you about these systems?
Yeah, so it's just Coach Emily Terrell on Instagram. It's the easiest place to reach out to me. I usually answer all my Instagram DMs pretty regularly, so I'm usually pretty good about responding of that. But Coach Emily Terrell on Instagram is the best way to reach me.
Well, I really appreciate that. I know I got so much from this. I love the leverage. I love that you taught that. The AI is mind blowing. I will definitely be using that for systems. And I think at the end of the day, people are really going to have some actual items to put into their business and make it better.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad. I hope everybody got something from it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, real estate rock stars. Have a great day.